Hi, it's Lorna, and today we're going to be talking about collage. So collage is gluing paper to other things. So today we're going to be working on bristle board. The supplies you're going to need are bristle board, a variety of paper, glue, any kind of glue will do. I'm using a glue stick and some Mod Podge, scissors, and a paintbrush. The bristle board that I'm using could be substituted for cardstock or a canvas as well. You are also going to need a brush if you're using Mod Podge or any kind of wet glue like Elmer's glue or school glue, all-purpose glue. Any of those will work. Rubber cement is fine. Rubber cement tends not to be a permanent fix for this, so if you are wanting this to be a permanent collage, you want to use something that will bond. So the papers that I'm using, I have a variety. I have paper that I have pulled from magazines. I have some scrapbook paper as well as some texture and handmade papers. The scrapbook paper comes in a variety of colors and sizes. This is some watercolor paper that I made specifically for this project because I think it'll make great leaves. So that's one thing that you can really do is if you are out of paper or you want a specific color that you don't have, watercolor is a great way to build up your paper stock. It's just adding some abstract designs to paper and then letting it dry so that you can cut it out into shapes. So the things we're going to be talking today are value, shape, texture, color, and line. And those are the things that you want to think about when you're making a collage. You want to make colors that are harmonious and go well together. You want shapes that are harmonious and go well together, and you want textures that go well together. And having a variety of values, shapes, and textures will add interest to your work. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw out a couple of thumbnails based on what I think I want. And these are subject to change based on placement, color, and when you get going, sometimes things just change. This is just to give you an idea of where you want to start. So I'm going to be making some potted plants. And I'm just drawing some basic shapes that I think will look good. I'm going to have some that are overlapping, so a little guy in the front here. And I'm drawing some shapes that are oval, some that have more sharper lines, and then I want to decide what kind of plants that I want in there. Maybe some little snake plants, maybe some little squiggly plants. I don't know much about plants, but I'm sure some of their leaves look like this. I'm also going to be drawing a little cactus. Here's the little cactus. And then a string of pearls. String of pearls is a fun little succulent that a lot of people grow. And it looks like green pearls that oftentimes spill over the plant. So I'm going to do some of those. And this is just a preliminary drawing to show you an idea of placement. So when you get going and you get cutting your shape, you have an idea of what shapes to cut and where to put them. So this is one way to organize your thoughts about what you want to make. You can also just wing it and go with no plan at all, and that's fine too, but it could be wasteful and you may run out of paper, so keep that in mind. Another method that you could do to organize your thoughts besides drawing a thumbnail is to write out your plan. Say I want 3 plants and I want 4 different colors. You can write all of that out as well. So the papers that I'm going to be using, I really like this green one. I think it'll be great for the snake plant, and I think that it will go well with this as the pot. So I'm going to cut a pot out of this one, and I'm going to cut the leaves out of this one. So now it's time to begin cutting out my pieces based off of my thumbnail. So in my sketch, I have a little pot on the left, and that's what I'm gonna make first, my little stripey guy. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut a chunk of this paper out that I want about the size, and then I'm gonna cut it down into the shape that I want. So I'm just gonna cut out a little square, and then I'm gonna trim it up into the pot. I don't end up using this pot in my final, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So if you don't wanna make this pot and you're following along step by step, I don't actually use this one in my final piece. So I'm just gonna taper the edges here, and you can measure and use a ruler and make sure that they're the exact size that you want. You can mirror it out, or you can draw on the back ahead of time and cut it out to the size that you want. I'm just eyeballing this today to make it a little bit simpler and so that this tutorial doesn't last 5 hours. A project like this, if you take your time and you are precise about cutting and precise about where you want to place things, it could take you quite a while. So for this, I'm using a piece of magazine. And when you use a piece of magazine, you have to be a little bit more strategic about where you cut and the placement of your pot. So I'm going to draw on here because I don't really want this part that looks like a car to be in there. And I don't want the compass rose to be in there. So I'm going to cut the part that doesn't have that in there. And I'm just folding it in half so that I get a nice mirrored look. All right, so there it is. There's my little pot. And I really like that it has the lines going through it. I think it's a fun, interesting pot. So now it's time to cut out the rest of the pots, and I'm going to do that in the same way. I'm just going to be choosing different colors for that. I'm trying to choose colors that I think will go with my other pots that I have in the scene. So I'm using a variety of oranges. The map one has a nice orange streak through there, so I think this orange will complement it. And I'm going to embellish the other pots with this orange. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of these out now and get back to you when we get to the plants. So now it's time for the plants, and I'm going to be taking some of this magazine, some of the teals and the greens, and I'm not going to cut the diver. I'm just going to cut the little pieces of rock because I like the texture and the shine that this paper has. But again, I need to be a little more precise, so I can draw out on the back my circles before cutting it out. You can draw on the front, but then you have to be a little bit more precise with your cutting, because if I cut this and there's any lines that I miss or any lines that I go over, no one's ever going to know what's on the back side of this. I am using a Sharpie marker so that when I put glue on it, it doesn't bleed. If you use a water-based marker, sometimes the glue will move your drawing on the back and you can get it on your paper. So be careful with that. So I am just cutting out a few more pieces freehand, and then I'm going to cut out some of the darker pieces there. So for your leaves, you really can just do organic shapes. I'm doing some squiggly lines, I'm doing a little cactus, and I'm drawing just some fun, funky shapes. I don't know if any plants actually look like this, but I'm inspired by string of pearls, and I'm inspired by little succulents and things like that. So that's where I'm going with this. And the shapes of the leaves that you do are up to you. So you'll notice that when I am cutting things out and moving them, I'm moving them around based on what I think will work best with the composition after I've placed the colors. Because sometimes when you put two colors next to each other or two patterns next to each other, In theory, in your drawing, it's going to work out great, but when you actually see it, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And that's why I don't glue anything down until I'm sure that I like what I have put together. So I'm working now to cut everything out, and then I'm going to start gluing. So keep that in mind, is that you don't want to glue anything down until you're 100% sure, because things change while you're working. Collages they come to you kind of organically, and though you can plan them out with colors and things like that, when you're using papers that have different patterns and textures, sometimes you just need to make changes on the fly. And that's what I do here. So I am going back to my original drawing and the composition of having 2 larger pots and 1 in the background, but I did nix the stripy pot on the left because it just was too much. It was too cluttered and the color wasn't working out. So I'm going to just tack down all these pieces so that they can move. I am just tacking them down with a little bit of glue stick so that I can move them around and place them where I want them. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue and tacking that down. This is not the final gluing. You definitely want to go around all of the edges and make sure that everything is flat and lays nicely. So now I have all my pieces tacked together with just a little bit of glue, and it's time to finalize this. So you can add a background to this, or you can add more things in the background if you'd like. This is just a piece of pink paper. Not really digging that. I think blue is going to be the best color for this, but I'm going to go with the white just so that everything is clear and there's lots of contrast. So you can slide behind your pieces a little bit of different backgrounds, and that's one of the reasons why I like to tack everything together with a little bit of glue so that I have more movable pieces. If you are doing this abstract and you're just going with the flow, then choose your background and glue things as you see fit. And the blue is going to really work with this kind of orangey mustard color that I have here. So the blue is going to work with that little stripe that I have in there as well. But I decided to just go with white for this because I think it's just going to look a little bit crisper, a little bit more clean. So now it's time to glue everything down, and you want to go around all the edges. So you want to gently hold down with one hand and then put glue all around every edge. If you skip an edge, you'll know because it'll flop up when you least expect it. So you can take a little bit of Mod Podge and get in there underneath if there are any places that you've missed. So a little brush with some Mod Podge. Now I'm taking a piece of paper and putting it over top, and this does two things. This helps it so that my oils from my fingers, everybody has oils that naturally come from their skin, they don't transfer onto my paper, and it also makes it so that I'm not rubbing any glue around and that my fingers aren't pushing up any of the paper. So I can go around in circular motions, pressing down without tearing or messing up my paper. So putting a piece of paper over before rubbing is great. Just make sure that there's no glue on top and there's no glue on your paper before rubbing it into your piece. You also wouldn't want to do the burnishing with any newsprint because a lot of time that will come off onto your paper. So again, putting glue all over the back and just gluing down my pieces. So now is the time where you can add any finishing touches, add any little embellishments that you want to add. Maybe you want to add some flowers, more texture. I'm going to add a little piece of this orange in because I think it will bring in the overall look that I'm going for. I think it will tie everything in just a little bit more. So I'm going to add that on with a little bit of Mod Podge. The Mod Podge you do not have to use in with the glue stick. I just like it for certain things. I'm switching because my glue stick actually ran out, but I do like it for putting underneath the edge of things and doing my cleanup work. So I'm going to do that, but that is all there is for this tutorial, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe, and if you want to see more videos that we post in the future, hit the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you try your own collage. Bye!